The medication room is empty at 2 in the morning. Just you and the hum of fluorescent lights and the computer screen glowing blue against the white walls. You're accessing a patient file for room 14, a man in his 60s, stable condition, recovering well. You're not assigned to room 14 tonight. You ordered digoxin anyway, 0.5 milligrams. The system asks you to confirm. Your finger hovers over the mouse. The hallway outside is silent. Every other nurse is in the break room or dealing with their own patients. Nobody sees you click yes. Nobody ever sees you click yes. You're 28 years old with a nursing degree from a state college and 6 years of ICU experience across 4 different hospitals. You make $64,000 a year working 12-hour night shifts in central New Jersey. You wear blue scrubs that smell like hospital laundry detergent, and you carry a stethoscope that costs $180. Your badge says registered nurse. Patients thank you. Families trust you. Coworkers call you reliable. You graduated with a 3.6 GPA. You passed your NCLEX on the first try. You wanted to help people. That part was true. That part's still true, in a way you can't explain to anyone who wasn't there that first time. The first time happens 3 years into your career at a regional medical center in Pennsylvania. You're working nights in the ICU, a woman in her 70s with end-stage lung cancer. The chart says comfort care only. The family went home 6 hours ago. She's gasping, the kind of gasping that sounds like drowning. Morphine is ordered PRN for pain. You've given her the maximum dose already. She's still gasping. You stand in the doorway and watch for 11 minutes. The monitors beep. The ventilator hisses. She reaches for the call button but can't find it. You walk to the medication room. You drop double the prescribed dose of morphine. You return to her room. You inject it into her IV line. You sit in the chair next to the bed and you hold her hand. Her breathing slows. Her face relaxes. She dies 18 minutes later with her hand in yours. You tell yourself you ended suffering. You tell yourself the family would have wanted this. You tell yourself she would have died anyway, within hours, maybe a day. You chart it as comfort care per physician orders. Nobody questions it. Nobody checks. You go home that morning and sleep for 10 hours without waking once. No nightmares, no guilt. Just a flat, quiet feeling that might be relief or might be something else. The second time happens 6 months later. A man in his 50s, post-surgical, recovering from a routine procedure. He's demanding. He calls every 20 minutes. He complains about the food, the temperature, the noise from the hallway, the way you check his vitals. He tells you you're incompetent. He tells you to get him a real nurse. You smile. You adjust his pillow. You tell him you'll be right back. It's 3 in the morning. The charge nurse is in the break room. The other nurses are dealing with an admission in the next pod. You're alone in the medication room. You draw up insulin. You don't calculate a dose based on blood sugar. You just draw it up. You return to his room. You inject it into his IV line. You tell him it's for his blood pressure. He doesn't ask questions. You chart it as something else. You finish your shift. You drive home listening to the radio. He codes 4 hours into day shift. They work on him for 32 minutes. His potassium was critically low, they say. Complications from surgery, they say. Unexpected, but not unheard of. You read the incident report when you come back that night. You feel nothing. Not guilt, not fear, not satisfaction, just that same flat quiet. The math you do in your head is simple. Hospitals are death machines that keep people alive just long enough to bill insurance, then let them die in increments measured by policy and profit. The 21-year-old in for a spleen biopsy who won't stop talking about his girlfriend. The woman in her 80s who's been on a ventilator for 3 weeks because the family can't let go. The man with the infected surgical site who keeps trying to pull out his lines. They're all gonna die eventually. You're just moving the timeline. You're not creating death. You're redistributing it in a way that makes your shift quieter, your workload lighter, your control absolute. You start keeping a list in your head, not names, numbers, bed numbers and dates. Room 8, March. Room 14, May. Room 22, June. The list grows. You switch hospitals when a charge nurse starts asking questions about medication discrepancies. You resign before they finish the investigation. Your exit interview is 11 minutes long. They ask if you're leaving for another opportunity. You say yes. They wish you well. 3 weeks later, you're hired at a hospital 40 miles north. Nobody calls your previous employer. Nobody checks the medication logs. You arrive at the new facility with a clean record and 7 years of ICU experience. You start on night shift. The charge nurse says they're glad to have you. Says they're understaffed. Says the last guy just stopped showing up. The pattern is easy once you see it. Insulin for patients without diabetes. Digoxin for patients without heart failure. Potassium for patients whose electrolytes are stable. Small doses that cause complications. Large doses that cause arrests. The night shift is perfect because doctors are gone and the administrative staff is skeleton crew, and the only people around are other nurses who are too busy with their own patients to notice what you're doing. The medication dispensing system requires a password and a fingerprint, but it doesn't prevent you from ordering drugs for patients who don't need them. It just logs the transaction. And the logs are only checked when something goes wrong, which means they're only checked when someone notices something went wrong, which almost never happens because death in an ICU is expected. Frail people die, old people die, sick people die. The only time anyone asks questions is when young, healthy people die. And you don't kill young, healthy people anymore. You've learned. You develop preferences. Night shift only. ICU or critical care. Hospitals with outdated medication tracking systems. Facilities that are understaffed enough that nobody has time to wonder why you're accessing the medication room at odd hours or why you're in rooms that aren't your assignment. You move every 18 to 24 months. Sometimes you're fired, sometimes you resign. The reasons are always vague. Attendance issues, personality conflicts, medication irregularities that can't be proven. One supervisor writes in your file, would not consider for rehire medication issue, but they let you resign. And when the next hospital calls for a reference, they confirm your dates of employment and say nothing else. Corporate policy, liability protection, passing the trash. By your 11th year as a nurse, you've worked at 7 hospitals across 2 states. You've killed at least 29 people that you're certain of. The real number might be higher. Some of them coded but were resuscitated. Some of them died days later from complications you caused. Some of them just looked at you with confusion in their eyes as the drug took effect, and you never checked to see if they made it through the shift. You don't think about them as people. You think about them as problems that have been solved. The bed that's been freed. The call light that stopped ringing. The family member who won't be asking you questions every 30 minutes about their loved one's condition. You have a routine. You arrive at 6:45 in the evening. You get your assignment. You take report from day shift. You do your assessments. You pass your medications. You chart your notes. And then at some point between midnight and 4 in the morning, when the unit is quiet and the other nurses are in the break room and the charge nurse is dealing with paperwork, you walk to the medication room. You access the computer. You order something that doesn't belong on the patient's chart. You retrieve it from the automated dispensing cabinet. You walk to a room. You inject it into an IV line or a PIC or a central line. You chart something else entirely. You return to the medication room. You complete your shift. You drive home. You sleep. The thing about crossing lines is they don't feel as solid as you expect. The first time, you hold your breath. The second time, you hesitate. The third time, it's just something you do, like starting an IV, or drawing blood, or hanging a bag of fluids. It becomes procedural, mechanical. You stop thinking of it as killing and start thinking of it as problem solving. The patient who's circling the drain anyway. The patient who's difficult. The patient who's taking up a bed that could go to someone with better odds. You tell yourself hospitals are triage. You tell yourself you're just making the tough calls that doctors are too afraid to make and families are too sentimental to accept. You tell yourself this is mercy in a system that has no mercy. But mercy doesn't keep a list. Mercy doesn't have preferences. And mercy doesn't feel the thing you feel when you walk out of a room knowing what you've done. You're 40 years old when the system finally closes in. You're working at a hospital in Somerset County. A patient dies from an unauthorized dose of digoxin. Then another. The risk management department starts asking questions. They pull medication logs. They see your name attached to orders that don't match physician prescriptions. They see you accessing patient records for people who aren't on your assignment. They see the pattern. They call the police. The police contact other hospitals. The other hospitals pull their logs. The pattern is everywhere. 7 hospitals, 16 years, at least 40 confirmed deaths, possibly 400. Nobody knows the real number because most of the records have been destroyed and most of the bodies have been cremated and most of the deaths were attributed to natural causes at the time. A coworker wears a wire. Her name is Amy. She's worked with you for 8 months. She considered you a friend. She meets you at a bar in Bridgewater after your shift. She asks you directly. She says she knows. She says you can go to the police together. You tell her you can't. You tell her you can't explain. You leave the bar. The police are waiting in the parking lot. They arrest you under the fluorescent lights of a chain restaurant at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. Your hands are cuffed behind your back. Your badge is still clipped to your scrubs. The detective reads you your rights. You don't say anything. You just stare at the asphalt. The trial takes 14 months. You plead guilty to 29 counts of murder in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. The prosecution presents medication logs, computer records, statistical analyses showing death spikes correlated with your shifts. They present testimony from coworkers who noticed you in rooms where you didn't belong. They present testimony from toxicologists who found lethal levels of drugs in exhumed bodies. They present testimony from families who describe healthy relatives who died suddenly under your care. You sit at the defense table in a suit that doesn't fit, and you listen to the judge read the sentence. 11 consecutive life sentences. No possibility of parole until the year 2388. You're led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. The families watch you leave. Some of them are crying, some of them are silent. One woman spits at you as you pass. You're taken to New Jersey State Prison. You're assigned to a cell that's 8 feet by 10 feet. You have a bed, a desk, a toilet, a sink. The walls are concrete. The window is a narrow slot near the ceiling that shows a rectangle of sky. You're allowed 1 hour of recreation per day in a yard surrounded by razor wire. You're allowed phone calls, letters, visitors. You receive none. Your family stopped speaking to you the day you were arrested. Your coworkers gave interviews saying they never suspected. The hospitals you worked for issued statements expressing shock and sympathy for the victims' families. Reforms were passed. New laws requiring better medication tracking. New policies requiring hospitals to report disciplinary actions to state databases. New standards for background checks and credentialing. None of it brings anyone back. You spend 22 hours a day in your cell. You read books from the prison library. You watch a small television bolted to the wall. You eat meals delivered on trays through a slot in the door. You sleep. You think about the list. Room 8, March. Room 14, May. Room 22, June. You don't remember their faces. You don't remember their names. You remember the feeling. The flat, quiet feeling that came after. The feeling that might have been relief or might have been something else. The feeling you chased for 16 years across 7 hospitals and 400 deaths. The feeling that never grew, never changed, never gave you what you thought it would. Right now, somewhere in a hospital, a nurse is finishing night shift. The unit is quiet. The patients are stable. The medication logs are clean. Or maybe they're not. Maybe there's a discrepancy nobody's caught yet. A dose that doesn't match the order. A patient who coded for reasons that don't quite make sense. A death that will be marked as expected, natural, unavoidable. The system is better than it was. The safeguards are stronger. But hospitals still run on night shifts and overworked staff. And the assumption that the people tasked with saving lives would never choose to end them. That assumption is a vulnerability. It always has been. And somewhere, in a medication room at 2 a.m, someone is placing an order that doesn't belong on a chart. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. The badge swipes, the drawer opens. Nobody is watching.